The snow always came early where I lived. It crept in quietly, covering the sidewalks, the roofs, the parked cars, everything, like a blanket that looked gentle, but burned like ice when you touched it too long. Every morning before dawn, I stepped into that cold. I wrapped my thin coat tight around me, even though it never helped. My breath turned white in the air as I walked toward the same building I had walked toward for 6 years. The one with warm lights, polished windows, and floors so clean you could see your reflection in them. Those floors were my responsibility. While the city slept, I scrubbed away the footprints of people who would never know my name. And while I cleaned snowy floors, my sister lived the life that was supposed to be mine. I was the older sister, the careful one, the quiet one. Growing up, I did everything right, or at least I tried. I studied hard, helped around the house, skipped parties, skipped dreams. When our mother got sick, I quit school without complaint and took whatever work I could find. Someone had to keep the lights on. Someone had to make sure food stayed on the table. That someone was always me. My sister Lily was different. She was beautiful in the way people noticed immediately. Loud laughter, bold opinions, effortless charm. Teachers adored her. Neighbors praised her. Even when she failed, people forgave her with smiles. She's special, they said. I didn't mind stepping aside. At least, that's what I told myself. When Lily got a scholarship offer from a private college, everyone celebrated. When I mentioned I had once dreamed of applying too, the room went quiet. You can't afford dreams right now, my aunt said gently. She can, my mother whispered, looking at Lily. So I worked. I cleaned offices at night and stores at dawn. I wiped desks where important emails were written. Polished floors under shoes worth more than my monthly pay. I sent money home. I skipped meals. I told myself it was temporary. Just until Lily finished college. Just until things got bare. They didn't. Winter after winter, I stayed. My hands cracked from chemicals and cold water. My back ached from bending, lifting, scrubbing. Some mornings, the snow outside felt softer than the floors beneath my knees. I watched life through glass doors, couples laughing as they hurried inside. Young women in warm coats, complaining about cold like it was a joke. People with places to be and futures waiting. Sometimes I imagined myself among them, then my phone would buzz. Photos from Lily, her smiling in cafes, her traveling with friends, her wearing dresses I could never afford. Miss you, she'd text. Couldn't do this without you. I stared at those messages while my mop dripped icy water onto my shoes. I never replied with the truth. The breaking point came on a night colder than most. A storm had hit earlier, dragging snow across the city like it wanted to bury everything unfinished. I was assigned extra work that night. Another building, another floor, another set of locked offices that smelled like wealth. As I scrubbed near the elevators, my phone rang. Lily. I answered, expecting nothing more than another cheerful update. Instead, her voice was breathless with excitement. I got engaged, she shouted. I froze. To who? I asked, my fingers numb. You remember Daniel, the guy from the charity gala? He owns that tech company I told you about. He proposed in Paris. Paris! The word echoed inside me. She talked fast, spilling details, diamond ring, wedding planners, destination. I leaned against my mop handle, listening as if she were describing a movie. Then she laughed. Oh, and guess what? We're moving into this amazing place downtown. You'll love it. I swallowed. I'm happy for you, I said, and I meant it. But then she added, casually, without thinking. You know, sometimes I feel like I'm living the life you were supposed to have. Silence filled the line. I mean, she rushed. If you hadn't stayed back, you hadn't helped Mom, if you hadn't worked all those jobs. I closed my eyes. The elevator dinged behind me. Warm air rushed out. People stepped past me without noticing the woman standing there with a mop, tears freezing on her lashes. She kept talking. But it all worked out, right? I ended the call. That night I didn't finish early. I scrubbed until my hands shook and my vision blurred. Each stroke of the mop felt like erasing a piece of myself. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to feel angry. Not at Lily, not completely. At the world. At the expectation. At the invisible contract I had signed just by being the responsible one. When I finally stepped outside, snow was falling again. I stood there, letting it land on my hair, my face, my shoulders, and I made a decision. The next morning, I didn't go to work. I sat at my small kitchen table, the one with the chipped edge, and filled out an application I had ignored for months. Then another. Then another. I updated my resume slowly, painfully listing jobs no one ever praised. I applied to a night program at a local college. I called a counselor. I asked for help. It felt terrifying, it felt selfish, but it also felt like breathing after years underwater. When I told Lily, she cried. "I never meant to take anything from you," she said. "I know," I replied, "but I can't keep giving everything away. I still clean floors. But not every night. I study now. I rest when I'm tired. I allow myself small joys, hot coffee, books, warm scarves. I no longer apologize for wanting more. Sometimes, when winter comes, I remember those early mornings, the cold floor, the silence, the feeling of watching my life pass by through glass. But now, when I see snow, I don't just think of what I lost. I think of what I survived. Because I didn't just clean snowy floors while my sister lived my life. I was building strength in the cold, quietly, invisibly, until the day I finally stepped into my own. Winter didn't soften just because I made a decision. The snow still fell the same way, quiet, heavy, unforgiving. The cold still crept into my bones. And the past didn't disappear just because I finally said, enough. Change, I learned, doesn't arrive loudly. It comes slowly, and it hurts. The first week after I quit one of my cleaning jobs, I felt lost. For years, my life had been measured in shifts and footsteps, how many floors I scrubbed, how many buildings I unlocked before sunrise. Suddenly, my nights were quieter. Too quiet. I lay awake listening to the heater click on and off, my mind racing. What if I fail? What if it's too late? What if this is all I ever was? No one tells you how terrifying freedom feels when you've lived your whole life surviving. College orientation was held on a gray morning. I almost didn't go. Standing outside the building, watching young students laugh and joke, I felt like an intruder. They wore confidence the way they wore warm coats, naturally, effortlessly. I tugged at my old sweater, my hands rough and scarred. "You don't belong here," a voice whispered inside me. Then another voice, quieter but stronger, answered back. "You worked for this. You earned the right to sit in this room." So I walked in. I chose a seat near the back out of habit, but for the first time, I didn't shrink. I sat straight. I listened. I wrote notes like my life depended on them, because in a way, it did. Lily visited me one weekend. She arrived in a sleek car, wearing a coat that probably cost more than my rent. When she hugged me, I felt the softness of her gloves against my worn hands. She noticed, her eyes lingered, just for a second. "You're thinner," she said softly. I smiled. "I'm learning," I replied. We drank tea in silence for a while. Then she spoke. "You know, people always tell me how lucky I am," she said. I waited. "They never mention you." The words hung between us. "I didn't realize how much you gave up," she continued. "Not fully. I was so busy living that I never asked what it cost you." I didn't answer right away, because the truth was complicated. "I don't want your guilt," I finally said. "I want my life." She nodded, tears forming. "I know," she whispered. For the first time, she didn't look like the sister who had everything. She looked human. Progress wasn't glamorous. Some days, I studied until my head throbbed, then cleaned offices at night to pay bills. Some days, exhaustion dragged me back to old habits, apologizing too much, accepting less than I deserved. But something had shifted. I started saying no to extra shifts that broke my body. No to people who assumed I'd always sacrifice. No to the voice inside me that said I was too late. Winter taught me something strange. Cold doesn't just numb. It hardens. It strengthens. One night, I was cleaning the same downtown building where everything had broken open for me months before. The same marble floors, the same glass walls, the same elevators, but I was different. I caught my reflection in the window, older, tired, yes, but steadier. Someone who had survived long nights and longer disappointments. A woman who had finally chosen herself. A young employee walked past and smiled. "Rough weather out there," she said. "Yeah," I replied. "But it passes." And I realized I meant more than the snow. Lily's wedding invitation arrived in the mail. Gold lettering, heavy paper. For a moment, I just stared at it. Then I placed it carefully on the table and went back to my homework. Not because it didn't matter, but because I mattered too now. Some people think stories like mine end with revenge or dramatic confrontations. They don't. They end with quiet strength, with boundaries, with healing that no one claps for. I didn't take my sister's life back from her. I built my own piece by piece on cold floors, in empty classrooms, during long winter nights, and for the first time, the future didn't feel like something happening to someone else. It felt like it belonged to me. Spring tried to arrive that year. The snow melted slowly, leaving behind gray streets and memories that refused to wash away. People say winter ends when the snow disappears, but for some of us, winter stays inside much longer. Mine did. Even as my life began to move forward, the past kept knocking. I started noticing things I had ignored for years. How I flinched when someone raised their voice. How I apologized before speaking. How I felt guilty resting, as if exhaustion were a failure instead of a warning. Survival had shaped me quietly. I wasn't broken, but I was bruised. In places no one could see. In class, younger students talked about gap years, travel, internships. I smiled politely while translating their words into another language. That spoke of sacrifice, responsibility, and time that never comes back. Sometimes envy crept in, not loud, not ugly, just a soft ache. That could have been me. And then the shame followed. You should be grateful. I learned that healing isn't just about moving forward. It's about forgiving yourself for surviving the only way you knew how. One evening, my mother called. Her voice was weaker now, thinner, as if life itself had worn her down. "I worry about you," she said. I almost laughed. "You never worried when I was scrubbing floors at midnight." I replied, gently, not accusing. There was silence. "We didn't know how much you were carrying," she whispered. I looked at my hands, the same hands that had cleaned offices, washed dishes, had everything together. "I didn't either," I said. That was the truth. Lily's wedding day arrived on a bright afternoon. Sunlight poured through stained glass windows. Music filled the air. Guests smiled and whispered about love, success, happiness. I sat in the second row, not hidden, not invisible, just present. As Lily walked down the aisle, glowing in white, something inside me tightened, not with bitterness but with release. She caught my eye for a moment. Her smile faltered. Just for a second. Later, during the reception, she found me alone near the balcony. "You look strong," she said. I shrugged. I learned the hard way. She hesitated, then spoke words I never expected. "I didn't steal your life," she said quietly, "but I lived it while you were paying the price." Tears blurred my vision, but I didn't look away. "I don't need you to undo anything," I replied. "I just need you to see me." She nodded. "I do now." And that was enough. That night, walking home, I passed the building where I used to clean. The lights were on. The floors were shining. Someone else was holding the mop now. For the first time, I didn't feel anger or sadness. I felt distance, like a scar that no longer hurts when touched. I realized something important that night. Some people bloom early, some bloom late. But late bloomers still bloom. I wasn't behind. I was delayed by duty, love, and survival, and that mattered. Snow never asked permission to fall on my life. But strength grew anyway between frozen mornings and silent sacrifices. I didn't become someone new. I became who I was always meant to be. After I stopped living for everyone else. Life didn't suddenly become easy. That was the hardest truth to accept. Choosing myself didn't erase the years I spent surviving. It didn't return the birthdays I missed, the dreams I postponed, or the version of me that never got a chance to exist. But it gave me something else. Control. My day slowly took shape. Morning classes, afternoon studying, evening work, lighter now, fewer hours. For the first time, my body began to rest. The constant ache in my shoulder softened. My hand started to heal. The cracks faded into faint lines, proof of where I'd been, not where I was stuck. But healing brought memories. And memories brought pain. One night, while organizing old papers, I found a notebook from years ago. Inside were scribbled goals written in shaky handwriting. Go to college, travel, be free. I sat on the floor and cried. Not because those dreams were gone, but because I had buried them so deeply, I had forgotten they were mine. A week later, I was asked to speak in class. Just a short presentation. Nothing dramatic. Still, my heart raced as I stood in front of the room. My voice shook at first, then steadied. I spoke about work, about responsibility, about invisible labor. I didn't mention my sister. I didn't mention the snow. But when I finished, the room was silent. Then someone clapped, then another. After class, a young woman stopped me. I've never heard someone talk about survival like that, she said. Thank you. I walked home lighter than I had in years. That night, I understood something important. My story wasn't small just because it happened quietly. Lily called me weeks later. She sounded tired, not unhappy, just human. Marriage is harder than it looks, she admitted. I smiled softly. So is sacrifice, I replied. She laughed, then grew quiet. I wish I had protected you more, she said. I looked out the window. Snow had returned, gentle this time. I don't need protection anymore, I answered. I learned how to stand. And I meant it. The city prepared for another winter. People complained, bought coats, stocked heaters. I welcomed it. Winter had once been the season that broke me. Now, it reminded me of who I survived becoming. One evening, I passed the same glass doors where I once stood crying with a mop in my hands. This time I walked past them. No uniform. No shame. No regret. Just a woman with a future she was finally allowed to enter. I didn't clean snowy floors anymore, but I never forgot them. They taught me patience, they taught me endurance, they taught me that even the coldest ground can support someone who refuses to fall. Forever. That winter came again. Not the cruel, endless winter that once swallowed my youth, but a quieter one. Softer, honest. Snow fell outside my window as I sat at my desk. Books open, hands warm around a cup of tea. For the first time in my life, the cold stayed where it belonged, outside. I thought about the girl I used to be. The one who woke before dawn. The one who scrubbed floors while dreams froze in her chest. The one who believed her worth was measured by how much she could endure without breaking. I wish I could reach back through time and tell her this. You were never weak. You were carrying more than anyone should. I didn't lose my life to my sister. I postponed it out of love, duty, and survival. And surviving is not a failure. People often ask when things turned around for me. They expect a single moment, a miracle, a confrontation. But my life changed in small, uncelebrated ways. When I stopped apologizing for resting, when I said no without explaining myself, when I chose progress over guilt. Healing didn't arrive like a sunrise. It arrived like snow melting, slow, quiet, inevitable. I still see Lily. We are different now. Not distant, but honest. She no longer stands in my shadow, and I no longer live in hers. We meet as two women, shaped by the same storm, walking separate paths. And that is enough. Sometimes, when winter nights grow long, I walk past the buildings I once cleaned. I see lights glowing behind glass. I imagine someone else mopping those floors, dreaming of something more. If I could speak to her, I would say this: your work does not define your limits. Your sacrifice is seen even if not today. Your life is waiting. Snow doesn't scare me anymore. It reminds me of strength built in silence, of dignity found in survival, of a woman who carried her family through winter and still found the courage to bloom. I cleaned snowy floors while my sister lived my life. But in the end, I lived it too. Not louder, not easier, just braver.